Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess of Victory nikke video, and it's time to talk about Rei, tentative name, or Rei 2.0, Black Suit Rei, the newest Rei we're getting. So we now have 3 Reis in the game, or we're about to next week, but the question is she worth actually getting? How powerful is she? Is she better than the previous Rei? Do you need to get her if you didn't get the new Asuka? Are you worried about wind at all? We'll try and answer all these questions, at least to the best of our ability, given that we can't do any testing yet. But I'm going to do a skill analysis of her and kind of talk about why you may or may not want to use your resources on her, because there's a lot of stuff coming, and I know we're all strained on those resources. So let's get some basics out of the way here. She's a burst 3 attacker with an assault rifle, and she is code wind. Her reload time is 1.5 seconds, and she deals 14.71% of attack as damage with her standard weapon. This is very standard assault rifle values. Now, there are some that have quicker reload values or faster ones. They range between like 1 to 2 seconds even. There are some assault rifles that deal 15% or even 18 or 20%. And there are some that are a little bit lower than this too, but this is sort of the standard. Most assault rifle users have these stats for the basic attack and reload time. But let's take a look at her skills now. She is a burst 3 attacker, so that burst has a cooldown of 40 seconds, and that's actually where I want to start before I take a look at her other skills, because she has a lot of things that reference other key terms here. So it says it affects herself, and she goes into attack state. Okay, there's like 3 key terms that we want to keep in mind when we're talking about Rei here, and it's going to be attack state, annihilation status or state, and then anti-AT field. So when she uses her burst, she goes into attack state, and that makes attack damage go up 35.9% for 10 seconds. That's very good. Attack damage is the best type of buff in the game. And then she also gives herself an attack buff, just a normal attack buff of 63% of the caster's attack for 10 seconds. So that's also very, very good. That's a pretty big attack buff. It is off of base attack, not final attack, but that's okay. It does mean that more duplicates will help you. So if you really want to go all in, more copies will be good, although it's going to be probably relatively marginal gains there. But the attack damage and attack buff together is very strong. And it also affects all enemies, deals 990% of final attack as burst skill damage. So she's just going to hit the entire screen for a massive 990% of final attack after getting the attack damage buff and the attack buff. So that's going to be a huge nuke that's going to hit basically everything. So very strong burst skill, and that's just kind of all on her. Like, she doesn't need any other help. There's no real synergy, but just like massive damage, and it's not distributed damage, so no matter how many enemies are on the screen or if it's one boss, it doesn't matter. They're all just going to take huge damage. So now let's go back to her skill 1, and it's called Annihilation Support. And a lot of her skills here are sort of more support oriented besides her burst. So it says activates after landing 18 normal attacks, and her natural ammo capacity is 60, so about a third of the magazine. Of course, that can be increased with max ammo lines and things like that. But activates after landing 18 normal attacks, affects the target when the target is in anti-AT field status. Now, where does this anti-AT field status come from? It doesn't come from Rei, it actually comes from our new eye patch Asuka. So we'll get to what that actually does, but anybody who's under anti-AT field status, she's going to deal 590% of final attack as additional damage, and stack count of anti-AT field goes up by 10, and then activates after landing 7 normal attacks when self is in attack state status. So after she's used her burst, affects the target, deals 286% of final attack as additional damage. So another huge hit of final attack as damage, as long as she's in her attack status. So if she's done her burst, so like every other burst cycle, she's going to get this additional effect of just more and more damage. So another very strong offensive skill, but she's going to deal a ton more final attack damage if they're in that anti-AT field status. So again, that comes from Asuka's first attack, which activates after she lands 50 normal attacks, and it activates only when in annihilation state status, which is going to come from her burst. So we'll get to that in a second. And basically, she hits a bunch of enemies for final attack damage, things that are closest to the crosshair. And then the actual anti-AT field status effect is damage taken up 0.83% for 30 seconds. It stacks up to 30 times. So they're going to be taking a lot of additional damage when they take the big final attack damage from Rey. So there's a lot of like interconnectedness here. Part of that is just going to come from Rey herself, but it's going to be way more damage, like literally more than twice as much damage if she has Asuka doing her effect as well from anti-AT field. So a very strong skill. It would be decent even on its own, but just dramatically better when she is paired with Asuka. So I think it's going to feel bad if you don't have Asuka, but she's certainly not dependent on it because the skill still does something on its own, even without her. So let's continue reading here. It says, activates when entering full burst, affects all allies in annihilation status. So annihilation status comes from Asuka's burst skill. So this is going to happen on the off cycle when Asuka bursts as opposed to when Rey bursts. Annihilation state says reduces the normal attack damage while increasing attack capabilities. Effect 1, normal attack damage multiplier down 40% for 9 seconds. Reload 21% of magazine, and then attack 46% of caster's attack for 9 seconds, and attack damage up 36% for 9 seconds. So again, a lot of interconnected synergy there. So she's going to buff Asuka with the effect up 1 for 9 seconds, and then attack range of annihilation state, additional effect up 500% for 9 seconds, and attack goes up by 17% of caster's attack for 9 seconds. I know there was a lot going on there, but basically she's just going to make sure that Asuka gets more of her buffs, and she's going to get rid of that the wind-up speed, reduces the normal, affects units with anti-AT field. Sorry. I'm getting a little confused here. I'm going back and forth between the two skill sets. So basically, she's going to increase the stacks of all those annihilation state effects from Asuka. So again, she's kind of buffing two different effects of Asuka, as well as doing just one kind of simple attack damage if she was the one to burst, and then the buffs for Asuka happen if Asuka was the one to burst. So let's move on to her skill 2. It's called Maintenance and Resupply. Activates when entering full burst. Affects all allies with a machine gun who have used their burst skill. Okay, so technically this could affect all MG users who just bursted, but namely this is just talking about Asuka again. So MG heat up speed, this is where we're reducing that speed, heat up speed, not from the other skill, goes up 100% for 13 seconds because Asuka actually has a debuff that makes her wind up speed of her normal attack very, very slow, and this gets rid of that. And so it reduces that for 13 seconds. It goes up 100%, and then activates when entering full burst, affects all allies. Attack goes up by 11% of caster's attack for 10 seconds. So kind of a small attack boost there, but still we're getting a lot of cumulative buffs here that are just going to keep adding up more and more and more. So a little bit of a universal boost there that's going to affect anybody, but then again, she's also buffing. It's definitely an Asuka focused buff, but activates when entering full burst, affects all allies. The attack will go up slightly, 11% of the caster's attack for 10 seconds. So this skill, not nearly as impactful. It's going to be a pretty minor effect if you're not using her with Asuka, and even kind of a minor buff to Asuka herself, because we've already seen that Asuka can do very strong damage and have very good results, despite having that heat up speed, very, very slow heat up speed with her machine gun. It just does, she still can dish out massive damage. So, this is kind of a little mid, I gotta say. But the burst skill is very, very strong. And her skill 1 has huge synergies with Asuka. I think that if you pulled Asuka, you absolutely want to get 1 copy of Rey. And then after we do testing, we'll have to see if you want to get additional copies of Rey. Again, it is going to buff kind of those things that scale off of her base attack values to get more copies. But again, we'll leave that for when we can actually do some actual testing with her. But I think that you don't want to miss out on her if you went for Rey. I just think that is a given. Now, if you didn't go for Asuka, do you want Rey? I think she's probably going to be kind of mid. We'll see what it's like in testing, but I think she's probably not going to be that impressive if she's not with Asuka. But I think she's going to be very good with Asuka and make Asuka, who's already good, even better. So with how surprisingly strong Asuka was, I think Rey is going to be a very good target for you to pull. I'm for sure going to get a copy of Rey. I already got my copy of Asuka. I think these are strong units, and the event is turning out to be pretty cool. I think it's like, maybe because expectations were so low for this event, they've actually, like, people are kind of enjoying the event, and it's like it didn't have to live up to a ton of hype. It actually got to kind of shine because everyone was kind of expecting it to not be good, and I think people are finding it more fun. But yeah, so my recommendation: pull a copy of Rey for sure if you pulled Asuka, and you can probably pass on her if you didn't pull Asuka. But I think she's going to be a very strong unit with her, and probably just kind of like decent if you didn't pull Asuka. So let me know what you're thinking. Are there any specific teams? We don't have a ton of wind options here. Again, we have Black Shadow Scarlet is definitely the premier wind attacker, and then after that it falls off a lot. We have a couple decent options, but like mana is tied to Black Shadow Scarlet. We have Noir, which is very much a supporter. We have Sakura, who's very niche, only against certain parts. And, really this is an opportunity to build a solid wind team with high DPS. So I think getting a copy of Rey and getting a copy of Asuka is going to be a pretty smart move. And yeah, let me know what you think. Did I get anything wrong? Do you have any additional questions? What do you think about Rey on her own? Do you think she's even worth considering at all? I think that probably, again, you do want them to be together. But that's my assessment of Asuka. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Consider giving a subscription to the channel, all that stuff. It helps me out. And I'll catch you guys in the next video or stream.